This morning. This has set Twitter ablaze. Social media is agog with commentary and it's trending. The conversation is front and center only because a private member's bill, supported by many societal groups, hit the headlines and is in Parliament now, set to be considered. These are your thoughts on the streets.
You know, we are African, and wherever you are, you have to abide by the culture of the people. And as African, we don't believe in what? In a foreign culture. If the foreigners want to go by that, that's fine with them. But Africa, I think it will be very bad for somebody to engage in such a attack. They are representing us in Parliament. So what the mass agree on, that's what they should go by it. So what the masses are saying, I think that's the right thing we should do.
With the new bill that will be being passed, I think it's in the right direction. Because looking at the purpose for this bill, it will ensure that such practice is condoned, and not only that, offenders are also punished for that act. To me personally, it is an evil act. Unreservedly, it is an evil act. I stress in capital letters. So with the new law which is being, when it is passed, and I pray that it is passed as early as possible, when that act is being passed, all Ghanaians will support it and ensure that its implementation is done to the fullest.
It's something that I really support it, because this gay and lesbianism issue, it's really bringing problem in Ghana, because they always think due to human rights, they are using this advantage to just take things for granted and stuff, because they don't know better than God. God created man and he gave woman to earth us, and they should have fun due to how and what they want to do. So you can't tell God you know better than God, because you have to take your mere female or male to just have fun with. I don't support that. So I believe what the bill is bringing on board, and I really support it 100% for that.
So that last voice there supports it, but many do not. And in fact, if you check the Twitter trends, you would find that there is divided opinion on this right down the middle. So should Parliament go ahead and pass this bill or not? Well, I have a few of you connecting with us on this very subject, and many of you out there also joining us already on our many social media platforms here on Ghana Connect. Remember to hit me up on Twitter, hashtag Nuete. Hashtag is Ghana Connect, but my handle is at Nuete, and I have Ivy. Ivy is in the USA, connecting with us from the USA, and I'm delighted to hear her thoughts on this very important matter. A Ghanaian with, of course, an international perspective to this, and joins us via Zoom. Hello, Ivy.
Hi, Noti. Nice to meet you.
Oh, nice to meet you, Ivy. Great to have you. And I have Boama. Boama is a convener. There's a group called Journalists Against LGBT. I'm quite curious to hear his thoughts on this. Hello, Boama. Will join us. We'll connect very shortly. We'll have Abdul Karim Ibrahim. He's also a journalist. Will connect with us also. And one of the sponsors of the bill is Hassan Suhini. He's also connecting with us on Ghana Connect. But tonight, I want to start with what you've been saying on social media on this, because as I said already, so many of you have been commenting on this very important subject, and so I want to hear first what the myriad views are on social media. Yes, Manuel.
Yes, Evans, social media has been afloat with a lot of comments on this particular issue. For instance, at Abdedze Enoch says, the issue is bigger. Now, common healthcare issue is bigger than the MPs. They should put their hand where it best fits. The LGBTQ is even a bigger matter for them than they imagine. They are showing 2017 reports. People are suffering now, and you refer me to 2017 reports. This one says that where is it written that when you comment LGBTQ plus, you've committed a crime.
Okay, well, that's
When you advocate for it, that's when you commit a crime. Is it lack of comprehension or what? This is in response to specific portions of the bill.
Lloyd.
Apau, okay.
Lloyd says, while it may be well-intentioned, let's not critique the anti-LGBTQ bill by arguing that there are more important national issues to focus on. Let's do so because it's simply vile and evil. There's no level of national development after which it's okay to bring up such a bill. This one at Museman says, how about MPs not being allowed to visit any countries that have pro-LGBTQ laws? No aid and grants from those countries, no sports events. Well, I'll put that to Asan Suhini very shortly because, of course, he's one of the sponsors of the bill. There's more.
Ray says that after reading through the bill, I realized it was written out of emotion, pure hatred and ignorance. We will continue to be begging or borrowing from the countries that accept LGBTQ plus rights? And he adds, shaking my head. Well, this one says that imagine what Ghana would be like if our MPs brought as much thought and passion to eradicating poverty and corruption like they are doing with the LGBTQ
so there's
plus issue.
a lot of you who are creating the binary between why is this a priority when there is poverty and there's hardship. Why are you talking about LGBT? Why are you devoting time and effort to this now, members of parliament? They'll come and answer this question very shortly. I also have here Idalo Meliodas on Twitter. It says, like I am as straight comes, but I've got to know so many members of the LGBTQ community, and I hate that it's all reduced to sex. Some of them are the best human beings I know by a mile. This bill is BS, he says. And then, of course, there are those who are making a lot of fun with this. Forget some George and LGBTQ breaking news o'clock. A message from the new special prosecutor himself, and then posts a cute picture of Fela Makafui in there.
The handle at Father Anthony says, even my conservative self disagrees. Speaker Alban Bagben should focus on expanding Parliament's oversight rules and control the profligate expenses by the executive. Just as discussing legalization of LGBTQ isn't worth our attention and resources, acts of Parliament against same are not. And that's what the handle at Father Anthony says. This one from Flint Asiedu says, very appalling that this bill is based on nothing but stereotype, less critical reasoning, contradicts the meaning of press freedom, arrests people of their natural dispositions, and definitely lackluster. And that's from the handle at Flint Asiedu on Twitter. This one from My Cycle says, some people are supposed to be fighting against injustice release just one flimsy press release on the whole 21 and carefully did not say with their chest that they are allies and pro-LGBTQ plus groups.
Okay. Let me read the final one. I'll bring in my guest on this. Big Joe says, it took a damn long time for the right information bill to be passed, for politicians feared it will expose their greed. See the zeal with which they passed the LGBTQ plus bill. It hasn't been passed, has it? It hasn't.
No,
been.
it hasn't.
So that's just a quick one for you. It hasn't been, but definitely it's something on the agenda. Can we now ask them to pass an anti-corruption bill as well, a bill that's in plain English and not vague? So there's a lot of you who believe this shouldn't be a priority now, and there are a lot of questions you're asking of your members of parliament who are pushing this.
And Evans, when we spoke to the people on the streets, some of them mentioned that this is plain evil, plain wrong, made reference to their religious beliefs and so on and so forth. This tweet from Fruitful Angela says, before I comment on the LGBTQ issue, I want to make it clear that I am very much a Christian with the Holy Spirit living in me. So my first reaction to the first sentence of the bill is, hey, who determines what is proper? With a lot of question marks.
Let me put that to our connectors who are joining us tonight. And in fact, I'm told that Sam George is also connecting with us right now and connects on the phone. Hello, Mr. George. Thank you for connecting on Ghana Connect.
Good evening, Evans. Good evening to you and your listeners.
I'm pretty sure, and I know you're very active on social media. I'm pretty sure you've seen how this conversation has taken social media by storm. We've been reading a few of the comments. There are a few of the comments I've read that, in essence, stress the point that why is this a priority for members of parliament when they say there's poverty, there's hardship, and yet this has become a focus. What do you say to those voices?
Good evening, Evans, and good evening to your viewers. You see, there's a very simplistic way to look at issues. Simplistic ways don't solve the solution. Those who are making that argument, tell me how a legislation or a private member's bill will fix poverty. I mean, let's be real and let's be factual. How will a private member's bill fix poverty? Many of the people who make this argument are educated people who should read the Constitution and know that a private member's bill cannot stand the scrutiny of Parliament if it imposes costs on the state. So, for me to sponsor a bill, it must be a bill that does not impose even one peswa on the state. That's the 1992 Constitution. So those running around and making those comments and saying, why don't you do this bill to fix this, to fix the healthcare system? Any legislation to fix the healthcare system, to fix roads, to fix any other thing that attracts costs to the state cannot be passed as a private member's bill. That, our Constitution says, must come from government. I don't control government. So the things I can control are issues that will not impose cost on the state. That's the fundamental. So, you see, like I've said in my last tweet I did, I said, look, let the arguments be intellectual. Let them be factual. Let's put the emotions aside and let's face the facts. So those making those arguments are factually weak and do not stand the test because the Constitution is clear. A private member's bill cannot attract cost to the state, except anyone can show me how you will pass a law that would deal with poverty or deal with hospital, medical inefficiencies in our system or road networks without it imposing a cost on the state. I'll be very willing to commit my personal resources to passing such a private member's bill.
Yeah,
I'm open to learn.
And I'll bring in our other connectors shortly, but I want you to, if you don't mind, sum up for me in crisp, clear terms what your central argument is for sponsoring this bill.
Okay, this bill is a response to activity and activism of the LGBTQ community. I mean, we're not going to play the ostrich. We've known these people have been around the society for a while. But like I said, we're not a moral police. And we are not going to go into the I've heard people, we are going to the privacy of people's bedrooms. No, that's not what this is seeking to do. This is in response to the LGBTQ community opening an advocacy office, having the temerity to open an advocacy office in Ghana to advocate for something which the Criminal Offences Act of Ghana, Act 29 of 1960, criminalizes in Section 104. The mere fact that they think that what is a private sexual preference should become the subject of public advocacy to demand that the rest of us who are in the majority, who do not go around flaunting our heterosexuality and imposing our heterosexual preferences on any group of persons, why we should be made to conform to what, in my humble opinion, is their perversion, is why we've responded with tightening the legislation that was passed in 1960 to reflect the needs of 2021 and beyond. And so this bill is simply protecting or promoting proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian family values. And I've heard one of your tweets that you read, saying that, hey, what is that? Go and read the Constitution, the Directive Principles of State Policy. From Articles 34 to 39, they talk about the proper Ghanaian family values. They talk about proper human sexual rights. It's there in your Constitution. Go and read.
Stay with me, Mr. George. I want to bring in the other connectors. Ivy, Sam George has a point, right?
I don't even know where to start from, but from a scholar point of view, a media scholar, a journalist, a gender teacher, like all those points of views, I find it very difficult to see how they are not seeing the interconnectedness of all the things that have been proposed in the bill. So it's not just something that is criminalizing LGBTQ activities. So I heard him say that it's in response to the minority and what they are doing, and not imposing whatever they are doing on the majority. So for the avoidance of doubt, I'm heterosexual, and so I'm not a homosexual. I don't indulge in gay activities, but I don't see how gay people are imposing whatever they are asking for on us. And this bill sort of infringes on different rights, many other rights, including researchers, people who are not even directly linked to it, allies. So I can't openly say that I support LGBT gay rights, human rights in quotes. I can't openly do any research on it because it has been criminalized by this bill. So many other connections, people are affected differently. And so I feel that in thinking about this whole thing, we are rather crisscrossing other provisions of the Constitution rather than trying to nip something that we think is bad in the bad. So that there's just too much nuance in this conversation that we need to have, just from that simplicity that the honorable is trying to make it look like. It's not as simple as that. That's my initial comment.
Mr. George, what you say to that? That if you read the bill, it's pretty broad, as somebody has described it as an octopus with all these extensive, far-reaching, infinite tentacles that
I
attach
am
everybody.
excited about the points that Ivy has made. Respectfully, Ivy, and Evans, if I have your permission, I want to find out from Ivy if she has personally read the leaked version of the bill. Because what has come out is it's been leaked. I admit that it is the document we've sent for gazetting. Has she read it herself?
Ivy, please, have you?
So in response, what I have seen in 36-page documents, which I have read from cover to cover.
Fantastic. I'll be grateful to you if you show me which portions of the bill infringe on which specific fundamental right that you speak about.
Okay, so Honorable, let me just open parts of the bill so there's a part that says cultural sites, visual arts, traditional cultural expressions.
I'll be grateful if you just refer to which it's in sections. Is it section 2, section 3?
I'm not sure I can give you which sections, but I can give some pages.
Okay, so, if I can get the pages.
For example, so the one, let me mention page 29, that says that public show of amorous relations between and among persons of the same sex. I put that in quotes because page 29 says something like that. How do we describe or how do we determine public show of affection? If I'm a female and I hug someone in public or I give someone a peg, does that constitute a moral whatever relationship? Page
fantastic, Ivy. I'm grateful you raised this. You are referring to section 10 of the bill, which is the prohibition of gross indecency. Now let us be clear on one thing. Even for heterosexual couples, the Criminal Offences Act of Ghana makes it criminal for gross indecency. So that is why you cannot go and have sex in a public space. That is gross indecency. That is an amorous show, even between a man and a woman. So that's why I'm saying that I'm glad we're having this conversation. It settles all the issues that people are raising or the misconceptions out there. Now, what we are simply saying, and most of the provisions here are in your Criminal Offences Act already. If you read it, that portion of the bill says, and it starts from 1, a person who willfully commits a gross indecent act, commits a misdemeanor, and is liable on summary conviction to a term of imprisonment of not less than 6 months and not more than 1 year. This is in consonance with the same provisions for heterosexuals. Now, it goes on to define what is gross indecency. It says it means A, public show of amorous relations between or among persons of the same sex. So here we are talking about actions like intercourse, sexual intercourse, which a man and a woman having in public is a breach of our laws today in Ghana. We are just saying that the same thing that applies to heterosexual couples will apply to homosexual couples.
Okay, so
the bill says that public show of amorous relations between or among groups, among persons, where one or more of the persons have undergone gender or sex reassignment. So here it's talking about people who are transgender, who have undergone a reassignment. He's a man, he's reassigned his sex to be a woman, and another person who is a man or a woman and has reassigned their sex, and they are having public amorous relations just like a heterosexual couple. It's the same law. Then there's C, which has been grossly misconstrued by a lot of people on social media. I'll take my time to explain. It says intentional cross-dressing to portray that the person is of a gender different from the gender assigned at birth with intent to engage in an act prohibited under this act. Now, in criminal law, to establish guilt or culpability, you have to prove two elements, the actus reus and the mens rea. The actus reus is the act itself, the mens rea is the intent. So when you read C and you read only the portion that deals with the actus reus and run to a conclusion, you have not done justice to the legislation. Okay. You read the actus reus and the mens rea. We are well aware that there are men who, for the purposes of, for example, an artistic expression like a drama play, a man will act as a woman. The intent of acting as a woman is not one that is to engage in an act. If you read it, the last line says, with the intent to engage in an act prohibited under this act that we are passing, this bill. So if you are acting as a woman, but you are a man, the intent with which you are carrying out that action is not to carry out any of the prohibited offenses here, which are gayism, lesbianism, transgender. Your intent is to educate. We have done detailed work here, and I hope that this will settle for you the fact that it is not just the actors. We went ahead to establish what will constitute the mens rea. People must read the full bill and understand it in context.
Ivy has additional questions, but quickly, Samda, this is just a quick one for myself. So the public show of the amorous show of, the obscene, it boils down to sex, right? But you can kiss.
No. Even today, you can't go into public and start kissing a woman.
Why?
It is indecent. It is gross indecency per your laws, if you like.
But who defined that to include kissing?
Evan, you see, we are talking law, and I'm saying to you that even for heterosexual couples, there is a certain level of intimacy that you would show publicly. People understand. I mean, a peck here or there is not gross indecency.
So you're talking about French intimate kiss, like saliva to saliva.
That's why we're saying that even this applies. This provision is not a creation of Sam George. It is in your Criminal Offences Act. I listed it straight with the team from the Criminal Offences Act.
Okay, Ivy, I noticed you still had some few things to clarify with Mr. George.
Yes, Ivan. So even this conversation we are having on page 30, the bill prohibits it. The bill is saying that media houses who give airtime, publish, produce, market, broadcast LGBTQ content are also culpable. So how do we make out? What do we make out of this? Are we
fantastic?
Supposed to talk about
Ivy, may God bless you for the questions you're asking, because these are the questions that a lot of people have misconstrued since yesterday night when this bill leaked. The conversation we are having here is not one that is promoting or advocating for LGBTQ. And I'll make this very clear for you. Multimedia has given us this platform to debate the issues. Our debate on the issues of homosexuality are not meant to promote it or to advocate for it. It's the same way multimedia will not grant you a platform to come and express or promote or advocate extreme religious belief. Extreme religious belief, the right to religious belief, is a fundamental human right. But there are laws. We have determined that a majority of us do not believe that extreme religious views, which some people hold as a right view of their religious expression as jihad, is wrong. We have criminalized it, and we call it terrorism. So multimedia will not give platform or airtime for anybody to come and promote the perpetration of extreme religious views, whether Christian or Muslim, leading to the annihilation of another person of a different faith, because we have deemed it to be illegal. However, Multimedia will have a conversation with a security analyst on the issues involving terrorism and how to combat terrorism. That is where the distinction is. So our conversation today is not one. The conversation we're having now is espousing on the issues of homosexuality. This conversation does not promote it. It does not advocate for the practice of it. There's a difference between the conversation or an intellectual conversation or academic in conversation on the subject and the promotion of it or the advocacy for it. They are completely different.
Okay,
so let us not lump them all into the same category.
Ivy, does that address the question you have?
No, it doesn't settle at all, because the bill is quite dense, and I mean, there are lots of things that are not well explained, like the Honorable is saying now, because when you read it on the surface, you look at what provisions have been made, you can see that a lot of people are going to be affected. Creative arts, media, straight people. Even there's a part that says that you cannot have, if you are having oral sex in quotes or anal sex, the whole thing is nobody has sex in public. So LGBT people do have sex in public. Yeah. So if people are not having sex in public, what's the whole idea? What's the buhaha around it?
But Ivy, can I just address this point Ivy has raised again? Again, not a section. You are referring to section 6. Section 6.3.
Sam, just a quick one. Let's make sure that Ivy has landed on her point. Okay. Ivy.
Yeah. So I'm saying that LGBTQ people do not necessarily go out there and have sex in public. How many people have we arrested for having sex in public? The people who were arrested were people who were having just these same conversations we are having in Ho some time ago. And so if you are saying that it's about we talking and understanding how the whole thing is about, and it's not about advocacy, where do we draw the lines? What's the distinction? How do you tell that this is advocacy and this is just having a conversation?
Okay, Sam, you're coming shortly, but I'll introduce Abdul Karim right after you. Abdul, stay with me. You're next. Sam?
Yes. So, Ivy, the way Joy FM's editorial policy is able to determine what is wholesome content relative to terrorism, relative to money laundering, relative to armed robbery, and will have those conversations within the confines that do not constitute promotion or advocacy, is the same way they will treat the issues involving homosexuality and not give a platform for the promoting of this. Now, you see, the issues are clear, except you choose not to see the clarity. But the point here is, training in the implementation of this law is going to happen for law enforcement. And so, at the end of the day, the law enforcement is not just going to wake up and go and say we've arrested somebody because we've heard that the person is having a conversation on radio about the ills or about the issues involving homosexuality. Even if that arrest is done, it doesn't mean you are being thrown in jail. There is a process that goes where they have to establish the case that you are making. But one more misconception that has been widely put out there today is Section 6.3 of the bill that you refer to, where you say oral sex is criminalized. Again, that is wrong. Let me read Section 6.3 for you. And I keep saying...
But isn't that unnatural carnal knowledge, which I see in this bill?
Sorry?
I mean, the oral sex. Isn't that unnatural carnal knowledge? Because I see that in this bill.
Wait, I'm going to explain to you. They are making reference to 6.3. 6.3 says, for the purposes of this section, meaning not the entire bill, for the purposes of Section 6 of the bill, sexual intercourse occurs where A person penetrates the anus or mouth of another person with the penis of that person or other contraption. This is what they are referring to as BJ being illegal. But what they fail to do is to go back and read what the context in which sexual intercourse was used in this section. Sexual intercourse is used in Section 6 only in Section 6.1a. It says a person commits an offense if the person A engages in a sexual intercourse between or among persons of the same sex. So when a people of the same sex engage in oral sex, where a man penetrates another man with his penis or another contraption, and it doesn't even end there. When you read 6.3, after it does the ABC, it goes on to add for sexual gratification. It is a law, it's legislation. But respectfully, it is not a novel.
But
it's
George,
not a storybook.
Can I read? George,
and so it speaks to specific portion. So if a gay man gives oral sex or penetrates the rectal area of another man, that is an offense.
No, but Sam John, can I read from this same bill? I think page 5. And it says the Supreme Court in Banasin versus the Republic, and it quotes.
So you are reading from the memo to the bill.
Yes. There's something very interesting about a case that was decided. It says, has clarified that what may amount to carnal knowledge in its determination that, quote, it is the female sex organs called the vulva and the vagina that are normally penetrated into during sexual act, which can qualify to be carnal knowledge under sections 98, 99 of Act 29. End of quote. This is a Supreme Court. So, and it defines which organs are penetrated during sex as vulva and the vagina. So if you do so with the mouth, as this bill then it sort of seeks to highlight to make their point, isn't that one of those that this bill will emphasize as criminal?
So Ivan, again, you are falling foul of reading a portion of the law and not the whole law.
No, I'm just quoting from what I saw in your bill.
The bill is not seeking to criminalize the penetration of another organ by a penis or a contraption. It is seeking to criminalize the penetration of that organ by persons of the same sex for sexual gratification. That is how to read the legislation. Now, if you read the memo that we did, that memo on page 5, where we reference the state versus Banosin, or Banosin versus the Republic, where the Supreme Court distinguished what is natural or carnal knowledge. In fact, it just refers to it as carnal knowledge. It doesn't define it as natural carnal knowledge. It just refers to it as carnal knowledge in that ruling. It makes it difficult today for the prosecution of lesbianism. Because in the case of lesbianism, you do not have the penetration of the vagina or the anus by a penis. And that is why today it is difficult for the police to prosecute lesbianism. And those are the things that this bill is seeking to fix.
Let me bring
those who say, and listen, you see, there is a difference between homosexual sex and kinky sex.
Yeah,
all of that has been defined.
Okay, great.
You understand? And so there's a strict definition.
Okay.
And if you look at this bill,
please stay with me, Sam. Sam,
forgive
bill, me. There's Abdul who's been on for a while. I want to bring him in. Abdul, where do you stand on this?
Well, Evans, thank you very much for the opportunity. I think first and foremost, what I need to state is that allow me to be as very colorful as possible, because if this bill passes, this may be the last time I get the opportunity to speak in the way I want to speak on this, because I could end up in prison after that. And so for me, I think that this bill is completely outrageous. This whole debate that we've been having on this show for the past about 30 minutes is completely ridiculous also to me, because it simply has not even remotely attempted to understand or critically interrogate the basis upon which this bill is necessary in the first place. We have heard nothing of comparable sophistication to the kind of arguments that we have seen from academics and all of that as to why exactly we need to present something like this. Oftentimes what you hear is that, well, this is an African, you would hear that this is unscientific, among very many other very ridiculous things. We haven't heard any of those. What we are getting here, and the analysis that we are getting here, is a textual debate as to where what was said and what that means and all of that. Because the foundation, Evans, is the most important thing that we need to really address if we are going to move forward. And so, as it stands now, what exactly is it that is warranting this? When the question or the matter is raised that there's something so-called proper sexuality, what exactly does that mean? Because that in itself is as subjective as one could ever imagine. So if oftentimes the very basis of this is that people are religious and they are on some moral crusade, or that this is an African and all of that, quite clearly that exposes their ignorance and lack of appreciation of the anthropology of sex in this country. I'm a student of African studies. I study these things for fun. And I know for sure that there is absolutely no basis, except, of course, the very, interventionist, hawkish attitude of evangelicals, Christians, and sometimes even Muslims and all of that. And it's very intriguing to also note that we are a people who have borrowed literally everything. The parliament that Mr. Sam George sits and talks about things and all of that. The democracy that we are practicing today, the suit that you, Evans Mensah, you are wearing, the religion that I subscribe to, just 2 days ago, everybody was running around this country looking for meat from Muslims and all of that. We've borrowed literally everything. But the very other things that have some cultural roots in our part of the world was somehow buying into this colonial mentality and running our amok, making ourselves into some homemade neo-colonialists and seeking to support this at all costs. I would want an argument, and that for me is the failure of the discussion that we have all been having so far. I want an argument that in principle would establish why objectively we need to proceed with this bill as it is. We can discuss the details and the semantics of all of those other things, but I'm not sure that tomorrow, if someone presented a bill to Parliament that, well, Evans Mensah should not be speaking on radio again, the question or the most important thing that we'll do on that bill is to ask whether or not they say Evans should not speak on Joy FM, or that he can leave Ghana's shores and go and speak on BBC, or that he can leave English speaking and go and speak on Tree speaking radio station. That is not it. That is as frivolous as it gets. Let us interrogate these issues. And if you take them one after the other, from science, from history, from religion, from morality, none of them would have any leg to stand on. And that is what they are running away from and getting into all of these very unnecessary, in my opinion, issues in respect of what exactly is in the bill.
Did you say religion too? If you take it, which religions encourages homosexual and lesbianism?
Well, the point I'm making here in respect of religion is that we live and have a constitution in this country, and it is one of a secular nature. And at any point in time when someone wants to, put their own religious inclinations or views on other people, we know what exactly the constitution says in that regard. And then again, if we are even going to accept, Evans, that, well, this God that we seem to have here, other people, by virtue of the plurality of religions, can express themselves. What about the various expressions and manifestations of non-heterosexuality in different cultures? Within that particular context, would you say that if I today proclaim that I am, say, an Azande, or I am atheist, would I be permitted within the scope of this country and under our constitution to practice homosexuality if I so believe in that? So anything that anybody would say, at best, if you believe in religion, your Christianity, I am a Muslim and all of that, keep that to yourself. Don't take it out there and expect that other people who, whether or not they subscribe to your religion, should adhere to some of those things. If you really fear God, and God has said anything truly about homosexuality and whatever comes with it, why not just keep quiet and wait when you go to heaven? If I go to hell, how is that your problem anyways? So quite clearly, there's absolutely, Evans, nothing. And I would really hope that that's the bone of contention in this conversation that we are having. Let us ask ourselves and ask them also, what exactly is the grounds upon which this definition?
Let me give you one ground. Let me give you one ground, and I'll bring in some. Let me give you one ground in the preamble to the bill itself, and it goes to the Constitution, our Constitution, and which is the ultimate legal document. If it says something, you have to abide by it. This is what the Constitution says. In the Direct State Principal State Policy, Clause 1 and 2 of the Article 39. Subject to the Clause 2 of this article, the state shall take steps to encourage the integration of appropriate customary values into the fabric of national life through formal and informal education and a conscious introduction of cultural dimensions to relevant aspects of national planning. 2. The state shall ensure that appropriate customary and cultural values are adapted and developed as an integral part of the growing needs of the society as a whole. It is beyond debate and doubt that our culture, none of the cultures that we are ascribed to, promote or entertains gay and lesbian rights. And if that's so, then we have to apply the constitutional provision accordingly and make sure that gay and lesbian rights, which is an affront to our cultural values, do not get integrated. Let Abdul Karim answer that, and I'll bring you some joy.
Yeah, there's a premise that we do not oftentimes critically look at. So we presume that what we have currently is what it is because that is what we are told. And that is the invitation that I'm bringing to the likes of Mr. Sam George and the many others who support his cause. That let us interrogate and ask ourselves really, if that premise that whatever we have today as so Ghanaian values are anything really deeply rooted in any history whatsoever.
So what does answer that question for me? Answer that question. So I almost hear you contending that it is not true that our culture and values abhors homosexual and gay rights, gayism. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there are different expressions other than what we know to be normal and heterosexual that exist within various contexts and cultures. What you do not see in all of those instances is that there are no laws within those our respective traditional societies and ethnic groups that outlaw these practices that we would rather consider as unconventional and inappropriate, as we are seeing currently. But Evans, very quickly, if you look at how this bill seeks to address that and the premise that you have also given and all of that, the challenge is that at every point in our society, very civilized society, what we have always seen is that people make a case. It's a competition of ideas. So if there's the Constitution of Ghana, for instance, categorically states today that Act A or B is prohibited. And then there's reason for someone based on some investigation to debunk the premises upon which that law was formulated in the first place, to make an advocacy and say, based on A, B, C, D, I think that this must go. We need to amend this law. We need to take it away and all of that. We must listen. We must not.
No, but you, I don't think you've answered the question about fundamentally, do our cultural values, norms, and customs as the Constitution has articulated encourage gay and lesbianism? This is a simple yes on that. Do they?
The answer is that is not true. That is absolutely not true.
As in our culture.
For instance, let me tell you about specific groups and what they do. If you would find several cultures here in Ghana and even across the continent where cross-dressing has always historically existed. So
give me one of them. I mean, you say you study Africa. Give me in Ghana which culture. So we are talking about specific act, not the dressing. We are talking about gay and lesbianism.
But you see, there's also transgender. There's also intersex. There's also different manifestations, and that's why the perversion and the interest only in sex misses the point.
No, but here's the thing. But the bill we are discussing only criminalizes the act, the sexuality. That is
really
it?
True, Evan.
And everything else that relates to that. Not clothing. Exactly. What if I wear female clothing? The bill doesn't got anything to do with me.
Well, if I wear female clothing, if you wear female clothing as a man who feels that you identify as a woman or you want to express yourself in that manner, the bill criminalizes that. But I was telling you about the casinos and what they call the gatekeepers, right? There were people who of different sexes who behaved and dressed in certain manners that made them be recognized in the society ordinarily as being of the opposite ends. These are things that exist. Among the Azandes, we know of how this has been properly so documented and all of that. So quite clearly, there isn't anything. And for me, we need to really depart from this colonial regurgitation that we'll continue to do. Because that quite clearly is not going to send us anywhere, Evans.
Ivy, quickly, and I'll bring you some.
Mm-hmm. So I heard you ask Abdul what our cultural values and stuff like that are. So I'm also wondering what we mean by cultural values. What are our cultural values as Ghanaians? Is it adultery? Is it having side chicks when you are married? Is it like all the other things that we do that we couch as cultural values? So I agree with Abdul on the larger sense of whatever argument he's putting across. What are we really fighting?
Talking about having side chicks, our culture celebrates it. That has nothing to. It doesn't abhor polygamy, does it?
My argument is always that.
But it's cultural value. I mean, polygamy is okay.
It's not a religious country. It's a country that's governed by a constitution. And so if it comes to this debate saying that religion, cultural values, what has been our cultural values? We've always lived with people like this. When we were growing up, we knew people who were cross-dressing, who were behaving like another gender, even though they look like another gender. And we schooled with them. We saw them, we call them Kojo Bisia. they've always existed with us in our society. So what is the big deal now? What are we criminalizing? Are we criminalizing the very nature that they have? Are we lumping all of them in one basket and saying that all these people are in contravention to what we are supposed to be doing as a country, and this is our cultural values? Who is defining that cultural values? That's the question.
Mr. George.
Thank you very much. I've listened to Abdul, and you could clearly see his difficulty in answering your simple question. One traditional area in this country that supports or endorses homosexuality does not exist. He cannot show you any. And this so-called liberation of the mind that is premised on forgetting what your culture and traditions are is a lost cause. A people who lose their culture are a lost people. Our cultures and our traditions do not support homosexuality. That is why you asked him 3 straight times. He couldn't give you one traditional area that support in this country that supports this bill. The last I held 4 town hall meetings. That's not in my constituency. Regional town hall meetings. One in Greater Accra, one in Central Region, one in Eastern Region, and one in Ashanti Region. The one in Ashanti Region was hosted by the National House of Chiefs of Ghana. They are recognized by our constitution as the custodians of our culture and tradition. Ivy says we are governed by the constitution. You read to her the constitution. You can't pick and choose the constitution. The constitution says that the state has a mandate to ensure the imbibing of our cultural and traditional values. She doesn't want to listen to that bit. Our traditional and cultural values say that they abhor homosexuality. So that is what we are banning. That is not a religious thing. It is your culture. It is your tradition. And I'm challenging anybody who is a proponent for the other side to show me one culture in this country, one traditional area in this country that has an institutionalized means of supporting homosexuality. Cross-dressing, again, let me repeat, has not been criminalized in the bill. It is cross-dressing with the intent to carry out a prohibited act that is criminalized. And a prohibited act is lesbianism or gayism. So if you're goofing around and you pick a woman's dress as a man and wear, the bill does not criminalize you. They should stop raising the false alarm. Again, let us make the point that homosexuality is a sexual preference and not a human right. Now, even with human rights in our 1992 Constitution, there are no absolute human rights in the 1992 Constitution. There are provisos for the curtailment of your human rights. The human rights you enjoy as a citizen that have been given to you from Articles 34 to 39, the Directive Principles of State Policy in the 1992 Constitution, have a proviso that you can enjoy those rights so long as they do not infringe on public safety, public health, and public morals. Read your Constitution, please. These are the 3 bases. It is on the basis of that you have a fundamental right to free movement as a citizen of this country. However, when COVID struck and your movement would have posed a fundamental challenge to public health, Parliament passed the imposition of restrictions bills that give the president the power to say, stay in your house for three weeks, except you are given a leave to step out. Your fundamental rights were curtailed because at the end of the day, they posed a threat to public health. Homosexuality today is a major driver of HIV prevalence in our country. The largest group of persons, and this is statistics from the Ghana AIDS Commission, the largest group of persons in this country who are transmitting an HIV and are HIV positive are MSMs, men having sex with men. And it has become known that some of these men also have female partners who also have other partners. And so they are moving the prevalence of HIV from that demographic of men having sex with men into the heterosexual demographic. This is posing a public health risk. Again, the public moral proviso means that we can curtail whatever freedoms you think you have, so long as they are in the public interest. The Constitution is clear. You cannot pick and choose. And like I've said, all the conversation has gone on here this evening. The issues that Ivy raised, very legitimate issues, but those issues are founded on misconceptions that don't exist in the bill. I have clarified those issues for any discerning mind to understand that the thinking that oral sex, for example, has been criminalized has fallen flat. That is not what the bill says. It is nowhere in the bill. The thinking that, or the position that the bill is criminalizing speech again, has fallen flat. The provision or the assumption that this bill is criminalizing academic freedoms and creative expressions, again, falling flat, because there is nobody who in a creative piece is acting as a woman who is a man or acting as a man who is a woman is doing that for sexual gratification. Read the bill, I plead with you. Well, I'm glad that the people we've had this conversation with are middle-class people who seem to have some good level of education. They should apply themselves to the bill, apply themselves to the memo accompanying the bill, apply themselves as well to the Constitution of Ghana, and they will realize that all the arguments and fears they are entertaining, in the words of my very good friend, the Minister for Communication, would amount to be fanciful fears.
Sam George, you are trending on number 2. You're a very, very popular man.
Sorry?
You are trending on number 2. You are a very popular man.
Well, trending is not my purpose. My purpose is the protection of the Constitution and the promotion of proper human rights or sexual rights and Ghanaian family values. That's all my interest is.
I'm grateful that you connected. Abdul, so should Parliament pass or not?
Parliament should just keep everything out there and throw it out in the bin, because that's what it deserves.
Ivy?
Absolutely agree with Abdul. Throw the whole thing into the bin. This shouldn't be passed at all. It doesn't help anybody.
Thank you, gentlemen and lady, and all of you who are connected on social media. And let's talk about what people are saying on social media on this. But I find something very interesting. This is the only time that Sam George has managed to unite both political parties in his defense and supporting him. Because I find Nana Ansah before, who would normally go hard at him, he said something on Twitter. Well, on Sam George's own Twitter, link, he says, "Sam George, this one I dare your back," and then he goes on, of course, to lay out why he dares Sam George's back. What are other people saying?
A lot more people dare Sam George's back, and this one says, Sam George is making facts clear, and the other guy is just insulting. He the floor ambassador. So I said, Sam George is very, very smart. He makes it clear on oral sex. He the floor the other guy. Hey, debates, nyame. And this one says, I like Sam George's words. The distinctions are clear, except you choose not to accept the clarity. The explanations given so far shows that most of the things are already criminalized in our laws. Well, somebody does not agree. And he says that Sam George is on the radio and all he can say is culture there. His only defense is that the chiefs don't like gay people.
But I know that there are others who are already threatening that it will cause him to lose his next election. So there's this one, slightly used virgin, SUV. It says, pseudo LGBTQ people in Ghana and their partners outside say they will sponsor a candidate to unseat Sam George in the next election. See, we the people of Ningo Pram Pram are happy and proud our MP is leading this charge to criminalize LGBTQ in Ghana. If you sponsor anyone, Lawu.
And this one is from Etonam and says that Sam George is doing the Lord's work on Joy FM at Joy 997 FM #Ghana Connecting. So a roundup of the thoughts that are being poured through on social media.
Well, listen, the debate has just started. Now that we've seen the contents of the bill, let's have it, because Parliament is going to consult. So if this bill is going to be passed, it's passed in the improved version, with your thoughts, comments, and input all captured and considered. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.